gentlemen, may I say a few words about our MC today, Attorney Roderick Dicky R.C. Salazar III. Roderick R.C. Salazar III, or Dicky as he called by friends, is a senior partner at Fortun Narvasa and Salazar, FNS. With 36 years experience, Dicky specializes in corporate and commercial law, projects, mining energy, natural resources law, and arbitration. Dicky leads FNS practice areas of projects, mining and energy, corporate and M&A, and real estate and construction. Dicky is in the Legal 500's Asia Pacific Hall of Fame for projects and energy for 2021 and 2020. He is a recommended lawyer for corporate and M&A and real estate and construction in the Legal 500 Top Firms and Lawyers for Asia Pacific, Philippines, 2023 edition. Dicky is included in 2023 and prior years editions of Asia Business Law Journal among the Philippines' top 100 lawyers. He was also listed in 2022 and past editions of the International Who's of Mining Lawyers. He was ranked as a leading lawyer in projects, natural resources, and mining by Chambers Global. DK teaches corporate and civil law at the University of the Philippines, San Beda College Alabang School of Law, and the La Salle University Tanada, Diokno School of Law. Ladies and gentlemen, I may now hand you over to our MC for today, Attorney Roderick R.C. Salazar III.
Thank you, Joanne, for that kind introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's session of the Philippine Infrastructure and Construction Club. We thank you for attending today's session because we do have a distinguished speaker on the main topic in today's session. Before I proceed with our first speaker, I wish to highlight the following. We will be issuing certificates of attendance to attendees, and you can request a copy from Ms. Joanne Falcotella at her email address joanne@picc.com.ph. We will also hold a Q&A after all the speakers have made their presentation. We will, may we now proceed to the stock watch, where our speaker for the stock watch worked as a stockbroker doing research on stocks to buy in the 1990s. He also taught finance and investments at De La Salle University, Graduate School of Business. And in the last 10 years, he has conducted talks on investor education for the Philippine Stock Exchange, as well as for the First Metro Securities. He is now a director of Angeon Advisors, a consultancy firm for capital raising and portfolio construction. Let us please watch the presentation from Sandy Gillies. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon to everyone. This is my stock watch for May 12 about infrastructure, and I am happy to be talking about nation building and setting the stage for growth. It comes down to the nation's economy, which is measured by gross domestic product or gross domestic output. It's the sum total of the goods and services produced in the country in a given year. Thankfully, our Philippine GDP has been growing over time, even though it's a bumpy ride sometimes. In general, as the demand for goods and services increases because of more people need more food and more houses and more schools, then the GDP tends to creep up over time. Even though it's not a uniform 5% per year growth, it's sometimes positive, negative, positive, negative. The one thing sure is that for it to grow more, you need energy, water, transportation, structures, more infrastructure. And so with good infrastructure, you can foresee that GDP can continue rising steadily over time. Now, there's a big need for more transportation, more water, electricity, construction projects. And in many cases, the government relies on private sector to do some of the work. And the companies with expertise and experience take up the challenge, but then they also need capital. Aside from having good employees, good engineers, good contractors at their disposal, they also need to have capital. And that's provided by the private sector, by us, the savers. We save money and then we take it out of the bank and we lend it to the companies who are working on these projects, or we invest in their shares. So that's why you could help them out by investing in their shares or any share offerings that they might have in future. It'll help them with their financing. Now, these are six of the companies with the biggest market value in the stock exchange. There's ICTSI with a market value of 416 billion. DMCI with a market value of 127. Market value is the share price in pesos times the number of shares, usually millions of shares. And then you come up with a billion figure for the market value. There's Ayala Corporation with 410 billion market value, Metro Pacific with 134. It's about to be removed from the stock exchange. And then there's Manila Water, MWC with 58 and Megawide with 7. So that's the size of the company on the stock exchange. It's the market value, share price times number of shares. Notice that ICTSI and Ayala Corp have big market value at 400 billion. And even though DMCI has a higher net income, somehow it has a lower market value, and that takes time to build with the dependability of its earnings. Sometimes market value can be high for some companies, even if their net income is for that year lower than others. So it has to do with the ability of the company to be an engine of growth, to be consistently delivering earnings and good cash dividends. Now, ICTSI was 15 pesos per share back in 2005. Went up and down, hit 70 sometime around 2020, and then it's now around 205. The highest point was 230. And I dare say it was a rocky road up and down, but generally upwards over time. So I'm able to expect that it might continue creeping up over time over the next few years, as long as they still have projects to work on. That should be the case. There's DM Consunhi, which was 1 peso per share around 2005, went up all the way to 18, down to 4. It's now at 9.46. So it's a rocky road and a rocky ride, but I think it's generally upwards, pointing up in the next few years. So there might be times when you think that if you had invested in 2015, you would be down a lot, and then it would be a long wait going up again. True. There are, for every 5 or 10-year period, you might experience negatives. But as long as the economy is growing, as long as the company is competitive and well managed, eventually take a bigger span of time, and then you will get positive growth. No matter what happens with those 5 years of negatives, they will even out over time. So patience is the key here. The same thing with Ayala Corp. You do have negative, a downtrend sometime around 2019 down to 2023, and then I'm expecting that it starts picking up again in the next few years. So that will be the trajectory of Ayala Corp shares. This is Manila Water, straight up all the way to 40, then straight down all the way to 8. But I think with steady water demand and for them supplying it ably, they'll be able to see that share price leveling out and moving up over time. So it has been a rocky 10 years in the past for Manila Water. So the key to investing for these companies, practically, I don't dare say all companies in the world, but most of them, if they are productive companies, are able to deliver a positive return for long time periods, say 10, 15 years. In this case, I studied the prices of ICTSI since 2005. It delivered a share price growth of 16% per year. So that's respectable. Meaning the share price went from 15 all the way to 205. No matter what ups and downs happened along the way, the fact is that it delivered 16% per year for the past 18 years. So it's worth investing in stocks like that. Same thing with DMCI, from roughly 1 peso per share to 9.46 now. That means that the share price went up 13% per year for the past 18 years. That's nice and reliable statistic. Even though there were 5-year periods that were negative, 7-year periods that were negative, overall, over this long span of time, you tend to get positive returns. That's really the way to invest in shares, because they do give good returns over time as long as the economy is growing and the company is ably managed. Same with Ayala Corporation. That share price was a lot higher than 665. It used to be 1,000 plus. So it's suffering some reverses in recent years, but I expect that share price could pick up over 1,000 eventually again. Meanwhile, its return performance was 9% per year for the past 18 years, and Manila Water 7% a year. So if you're looking for something better than bonds, which is 5% a year, then shares like this, invest money there, wait a long time. Anyway, you're investing for your retirement at the age of 65, 70. So by that time, the positive returns would be back. And then the negative returns would be a thing of the past after having overcome these crises. So how do you buy shares? You check what the price is. If the price is above 1,000 pesos per share, then you need to buy 5 shares minimum or multiples of 5. If the price is 50 to 999 pesos, you need to buy minimum of 10 shares or multiples of 10, and so on. If it's 5 to 49 pesos per share, then you need to buy in groups of 100, minimum of 100. So let's go down to the example of, if ICTSI is at 205 pesos per share, then you need to buy a minimum of 10 shares. And that means your minimum order is 2,050. For DMCI, if the share price is 9.58, you need to buy 100 shares minimum. So your minimum order in pesos is 958. For Ayala Corp, if the share price is 659, multiplied by 10 shares minimum, then you'll need to buy 6,590 as your minimum order. And then for Manila Water, if the share price is 20.1 and you need to buy 100 shares, then your minimum order is 2,010. Total for your first basket of stocks will be 11,608. Stockholder ka na. And if you can afford, buy 2 baskets for 23,216, or buy 3 baskets for 34,824, and keep them there for your retirement. That's the best policy. It's very difficult for beginners to make money on stocks if they're trading buy, sell, buy on Monday, sell on Friday, buy in January, sell in December. It's better to just park the money there, buy and hold for long term. Well, thanks for your kind attention. Feel free to send questions to agillis@carillonpartners.net. Good luck on a good mining luncheon, infrastructure luncheon, infrastructure and construction luncheon, and may you all have a good day. Thanks.
Good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen. We can now proceed with our main speaker for this afternoon. Allow me to say a few words about our main speaker today. Undersecretary Maria Catalina E. Cabral is a model for woman infrastructure in an organization dominated by male officials and employees. She has made history when she became the first female rank-and-file employee who reached the level of undersecretary in the hierarchy of officials in the engineering and construction arm of the government. She is a licensed civil engineer, and she has 3 master's degrees and 2 doctorate degrees in the field of business management, economics, and public administration. And at present, she is finishing another doctorate degree on urban and regional planning at the University of the Philippines. She is the holder of the 2021 Professorial Chair in Engineering, Science and Technology in Polytechnic University of the Philippines. Undersecretary Cabral is a registered ASEAN and APEC engineer and has been conferred as an honorary fellow by the ASEAN Federation of Engineering Organization. She is the 2017 to 2018 National President and first female highest leader of the Philippine Institute of Civil Engineers, PICE, and the 2019-2021 National President of the Road Engineering Association of the Philippines. She is also a commissioned reserve force in the Armed Forces of the Philippines with the rank of Lieutenant Colonel in the Philippine Army. Her competence, excellence, and commendable track record earned her various awards and recognitions like the 2021 PEZA Galing Pilipinas Ecozone Partnership Award, the 2020 Excellence Awardee from the Philippine Federations of Professional Associations, the 2018 Most Outstanding Alumni Awardee, College of Engineering, and 2021 Most Outstanding Alumni by the University of the East, and a 2021 Outstanding Professional of the Year in the field of Civil Engineering by the Professional Regulation Commission, PRC, and recently awarded by the JCI Senate Philippines as one of the 5 Outstanding Filipino Awardees, TOEFL, Laureate for Government and Public Service for the year 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, let us please warmly welcome Undersecretary Maria Catalina E. Cabral.
Good afternoon to everyone. I came from SEDA. Sabi niyo sa SEDA tapos dito pala kayo. No? This is near my office. I set my meetings in SEDA just to make sure that I will not be late. Then, I was informed an hour ago that you transferred to Dusit Tang. So I apologized for a bit of delay because I came from BGC to come here. But then, I'm very happy to finally make it here and share with you the Public Works and Highways Strategic Infrastructure Programs and Projects. And again, pleasant good afternoon to everyone. The Secretary of Public Works and Highways, as everyone knows, is Secretary Manny Bonoan, who has been with the DPWH before he retired 10 years ago and joined private sector, one of the biggest corporations in the industry, and rejoined the department as the Secretary of Public Works and Highways, and bringing with him the expertise not only in operations but also in planning, the directions of the President Bongbong Marcos under the Build Better More. So this afternoon, I'd like to express our gratitude in his behalf. Earlier, I went to see him and informed him that I am going to speak in front of you to share with you what we are doing and how the infrastructure development would look like in the next 5 years left under President Bongbong Marcos. So as we know that infrastructure is the basic backbone of economic development, especially coming from pandemic, it is also the key that the government is prioritizing to make sure that we recovered from the economic slump as an aftermath of COVID-19 pandemic, suffering for 2 years. Of course, not only did the industry suffer a major setback, in fact, 2020, 2021, most of the businesses closed down. Even the private construction suffered significantly. And because, of course, of the transportation difficulties, the cost of construction materials rapidly increasing because of a lot of external factors. But then government and through infrastructure agencies like Department of Public Works and Highways, we are at the forefront. We did not stop building vital facilities to well, at least sustain, no, the economic development. But we understood that we need to really pump prime again as we are going back, no, to the normal after the pandemic. And many sectors suffered, not only the construction industry, of course, directly impacting the job opportunities and employment, labor. Um, Again, the opportunities back then were really very bleak, but the government was really trying to, you know, bring up, well, at least sustain. But again, it was difficult. And now, going back to the new normal, we are helping other industries that have suffered tremendously, like tourism sector for one, the manufacturing sectors also, and other sectors that would be needing help. Because if you remember, there are only, you know, 3 sectors during 2 years of COVID that were moving, you know, and up there is the banking. We did not stop, no, transaction did not stop, but we had to double time and learn technology because nobody was transacting physically. Everything was happening online, digital. Technology was there. Technology was there. And of course, infrastructure, we were building hospitals, evacuation centers, repairing damages brought about by calamity. If I recall, in 2020, before the lockdown, if you recall, the Taal volcano erupted sometime in February that year. So there were a lot of calamities that happened even during those 2 years, and we were not stopping. Government, public works was leading, you know, the infrastructure. So much so that, you know, right now, there are still challenges as we go back to the new normal. And perhaps during the open forum, we can discuss some issues and concerns plaguing the industry, and, you know, find ways and means so that we can also communicate those strategies and those suggestions to the economic team as well as the private sector advisory council. As you know, President Marcos organized, you know, he welcomes inputs from the private sector on how we can fast track all these programs and projects under his administration. So without much further ado, let me share with you what we are doing in DPWH consistent with the 2023-2028 Philippine Development Plan. The 2023-2028 Philippine Development Plan which was approved last December by the NEDA board led by President Marcos, serves as the country's overall blueprint in the development planning for the next years of his administration. It reflects the government's policies, strategies, programs, and legislative priorities in support of and consistent with President Marcos' socio-economic agenda, focusing primarily on food security and trying to bring down the cost of transport and logistics. There are several cross-cutting strategies that are identified in the Philippine Development Plan, and this serves as a catalyst for economic, social, institutional, and environmental transformation. Number 1 is digitalization. Of course, you know, we can even now hold meetings even if you're not physically present. So digital transformation of government is really in the major platform. You know, that's why DICT, the agency in charge of digital transformation and making sure that the digital processes of government are synchronized and harmonized. You know, we are now even starting e-signature in government, even though, you know, in the past, Commission on Audit does not recognize e-signature. But now we acknowledge that we are now in the 21st century, that the advent of technology and, you know, information technology is now inevitable. So Of course, public-private partnership remains to be a major strategy of the current administration. The president encourages participation of the private sector. So as you can see, even during his foreign visits, he makes sure to bring with him a delegation of private sector representatives to encourage private sector participation, especially in big-ticket projects, not only infrastructure but also in other programs of this government. The government will pursue policies that will build on integrating various ecosystems around manufacturing so that this will be a potential source for economic growth. Innovation is also on top of the President's strategic program and priorities. Innovation in terms of introducing new products, more efficient processes, and even bigger market shares. So all the agencies now are being encouraged to introduce innovations. You know, I read the other day that the DOTR is introducing, well, this is not the first all over the world, but you know, licenses, digital licenses. So wala nang hard copy. So, but of course, this is not new all over the world, but in the Philippines, government is, you know, trying to find ways to introduce innovations and make full use, optimize digitalization and technology. Artificial intelligence is, you know, the way to go moving forward. Digital and physical connectivity through programs and priorities, not only physical infrastructure, but also to make sure that there is adequate digital infrastructure that will make and facilitate the movement of people faster. And of course, there should be a synchronization and harmonization of plans and programs between the national government and the local government. In the country, you know, our local government code provides for an organization of several political administrative units, starting from the provincial government, municipal city government, all the way down to the smallest and lowest administrative unit of government, which is the barangay. Having said that, we also acknowledge that there should be harmonization of plans and programs between national government and local government, because local government has jurisdiction over local programs and projects that are spelled out in the local government code, 1991 local government code. But you must be familiar with the Supreme Court ruling on mandanas. I'm not so sure if you are, but there's that ruling by the Supreme Court that expanded the financial resources of local government units by widening the base of financing for LGUs to be taken not only from the internal taxes collected by BIR, but also from the national taxes collected by the Bureau of Customs. So according to the law, there is that formula where the local government can have a share of the total revenue, and before the Supreme Court ruling, the base being used was only those collected by the Internal Revenue Bureau. So now with that Mandanas ruling, opportunities will be opened not only for local government, but they have better access for private sectors and stakeholders to discuss with them opportunities. Okay, and you must also be aware of, you know, the current policies on the BOT law and the joint venture guidelines that enables local government units to enter into contracts with the private sector. Okay, so those are opportunities, but it will take a day before I can discuss with you all the details. But the marching order of the president during last year, no, it was actually 1 year na pala the election. So during the State of the Nation last year in July, his marching order was not only to sustain the momentum of infrastructure development, but the government commits to continue what has been started in the previous administration by building and expanding and building more wherever possible. The build into build better and building more. So much so that we are now anchoring the growth of the the GDP growth of the country, especially anchoring on how infrastructure sector will perform. Hopefully, the 5 to 6% of the country's GDP, the 5% of the country's GDP will be allotted to infrastructure spending. The program of the government will support the national government efforts to push the revival of economy that has been affected greatly by the pandemic. And as pronounced, we will not only build, but we will build better and build more. The Department of Public Works and Highways, we are the construction and engineering arm of the government. We are the biggest construction arm. More than half of the country's public spending is being implemented by the Department of Public Works and Highways. In fact, for 2023, we have been given a budget of nearly 900 billion pesos, which was significantly much higher from where we were when President Duterte started its administration sometime in 2016, when our budget then was around 400 billion. So it did not only double, but it's more than double. And the 900 billion appropriated under the budget of public works is more than, I think, nearly 60% of the government's infrastructure budget. The rest are being shared and implemented by the Department of Transportation, which, by the way, is in charge of your airports, ports, and rail, among others. And Department of Agriculture, they are building, irrigations, small water impounding, farm-to-market roads, other infrastructure agencies such as BCD also build infra. So, as I said, but among them, Public Works is the biggest infrastructure agency. We are mandated, our basic mandate is on the planning and implementation, design, construction, and maintenance of national roads and bridges, flood control, major water resources projects, particularly flood control in major and principal river basin, including upkeep and maintenance of national roads and bridges, and major flood control system. From July 2022, that means the start of this administration, up to March this year, a total of around 3,200 plus kilometers of roads and more than 1,600 plus bridges were constructed, rehabilitated, widened, and upgraded by DPWH. Also, we were able to finish around 1,600 plus flood control projects nationwide, more than 3,600 classrooms from the budget of the Department of Education, and about 44 evacuation centers were finished. So the following are the Department of Public Works and Highways' key strategic infrastructure programs that are aligned with the 2023-2028 Philippine Development Plan, consistent with the President's 8-point agenda, focusing on reducing transport and logistic costs and ensuring food security. First is the traffic decongestion problem. Of course, we are in Metro Manila, National Capital Region. We experience most, traffic congestion. And this long-held problem of traffic congestion in major thoroughfares, particularly in urban centers and highly urbanized regions like National Capital Region, has long beset the Filipinos of this problem. In fact, there was even a study by JICA that says between 3 to 5 billion is being lost every day by the country in terms of, the gross domestic product because of traffic delays. During the pandemic, of course, no transportation was available. But now, everyone was raring to travel again, even air travel. So all your airports, are quite busy. So we recognize that, government recognizes that, and Public Works and Highways, we focus on the improvement of national road network by building more bypasses, diversion roads, and high standard highways and expressways. We will provide seamless and inclusive connectivity through the building and construction of inter-island linkage bridges. We want to improve and widen and upgrade Maharlika Highway or Daang Maharlika. Daang Maharlika is your primary road network that connects Daang Maharlika is your primary road network by nomenclature. That is the Asian Highway 26 if you map it out in the Asian Highway, and that is our primary national road that connects north all the way to Lawag and the south all the way to Mindanao. Okay? Collectively, it stretches to about more than 3,000 kilometers, but Maharlika Highway will be connected also by sea travel. That's why it's important also for the Department of Transportation to ensure that we have good airports and good ports. So we want to upgrade, improve, rehabilitate many portion of Maharlika Highway. If you're familiar, and if you have traveled by land from Luzon all the way to Mindanao, you know that a lot of the portions in Region 5, that is in Bicol, in Region 8, that is in Tacloban, Samar, Leyte, connecting all the way to Mindanao in Zamboanga, all the way to Caraga in Region 13, many of the portions of Maharlika Highway are in bad shape. And if all of you again recall Typhoon Yolanda, sino bang nakakaalala ng Typhoon Yolanda? Oh, di ba? If you remember Typhoon Yolanda, that was in 2013. Oh, yan. 2013, Region 8 was down. And there was no transport air for government to deliver the immediate relief, and because the airport was down, and all the satellites were down. We have to use by land. And all the government agencies that would want to help Region 8 then was suffering a traffic gridlock using Maharlika Highway, because at that time many portions are still in two lane, 4 lane at the most, and there were many obstruction. And therefore now we started post Yolanda, of course among other priority flood control projects. We wanted to ensure that the basic primary backbone of the country is up to international standards, and widening it from 4 lane to 6 lane, and some portions are still in 2 lanes, especially those that have obstructions. We want to widen that into 4 lane and 6 lane eventually. But again, that's a very, very challenging job, because as you know, when we widen, we need to acquire land. And the country has a very tedious land acquisition process that is mandated and embedded in the right-of-way law, Republic Act 10752. Okay? So again, having said that, we are still prioritizing upgrading of Daang Maharlika. We want to connect the gap along the national roads and particularly upgrade those that will have significant impact on designated tourism destinations with the partnership and support of the Department of Tourism. And of course, given the country's inevitable vulnerability to hazards, you know, we are an archipelago. We are located in the Pacific Ring of Fire. And as such, it is a boom for tourism, but it is also a bane or a boon. Because we have, you know, with all the volcanoes here, with all the volcanoes located we are in the Pacific Ring of Fire, we experience, you know, a lot of strong typhoons, and due to climate change, you know, the only thing that we're not experiencing is actually snow. But then it's also a boom because those are the tourist attractions, right? I could even remember when Taal volcano erupted, the government was, you know, trying to warn tourists because they wanted to get a good snapshot of Taal volcano even if it is erupting already. So it is really, you know, an advantage of the country, but it is also one of the vulnerability of the country in terms of geological hazards. That's why DPWH, as your construction and engineering arm, we are supporting building resilient and sustainable communities by doing flood control projects, bridge seismic improvement projects, as well as building vital facilities to be able to, you know, help local communities, especially post-disaster, by building evacuation centers, even quarantine facilities. For example, in traffic decongestion program, we are prioritizing high-standard highways and expressways, bypasses and diversion roads based on feasibility studies. We are building flyovers, interchanges, and underpasses in urban centers. And one of the priority program of DPWH is the Philippine High Standard Highway Network. And the government wants to expand the country's highways and expressways to lessen the overconcentration of population and development in urban areas, particularly Metro Manila. Metro Manila, by land area, you only have 300 square kilometers, and you carry more than 10 million population, and your industries are over-concentrated in Metro Manila. We would want to give way to regional development. Targets to increase the country's high-standard highways and expressways from the current 510 kilometers to more than nearly 2,000 kilometers based on a master plan of high-standard highway network development we finished with the support of JICA. Let me walk you through some of the major projects that is part of the high standard highway. First is, in Visayas, we have Metro Cebu Expressway. So Metro Cebu Expressway, this is about more than 50 kilometers of expressway that will start from Naga City to Danau City, that intends to reduce travel time between these 2 points from just about 3 hours to a little less than 1 hour. So right now, it's nearly 100% complete, the portion of segment 3, and we are budgeting segments 1 and the remaining of segment 3 in 2024 moving forward. So this is part of the flagship project of President Marcos. Moving to Mindanao, we have the Davao City Coastal Road. This is around 16-kilometer coastal road that will provide the construction and opening of a 23-meter wide 4-lane road. We're building bike lane so that we will encourage active transport. And construction of 17 bridges along the entire 16-kilometer coastal road. Our goal is to reduce travel time from Toril, if you're familiar in Davao, to Poblacion from 45 to an hour to just about 15 minutes. And this is funded using both local funds and ODA funds, meaning a loan. We're now at around 69% complete for the bridge in Bukana, and the Talomo Matina Bridge will be completed by mid of this year. Okay, so next is the Davao City Bypass Construction Project. This is a 45-kilometer, 4-lane, 2-lane each direction that will include 2 mountain tunnel. The longest tunnel, we don't have much tunnel in the country, right? So the longest tunnel that will be constructed in the country will be in Davao City, and this will span around 2.3 kilometer per tunnel. Okay, so again, this is an ODA project with JICA that has an approximate cost of 46 billion pesos, and this has been started in 2020, and our target full completion is sometime in 2027. So one of our flagship projects as well. One of the game-changing project of DPWH is the Luzon Spine Expressway Network, or LSEN program. This involves the construction of more than 1,000 kilometers of expressways and high-standard highways in Luzon. And once these projects are finished, travel time from Ilocos in the north all the way to Bicol in the south will be reduced from 20 to 24 hours to just about 9 hours once we finished. And how are we going to do that? I've always been asked, wish ko lang. Okay? But then, here's the blueprint. Next slide. Oh, bakit nawala ka? Kala ko ba technology na tayo? We finished, of course, you are familiar with, oo nga, diba? Kala ko ba technology na tayo? Tapos, of course, you are already familiar with the current expressways like the North Luzon Expressway, the South Luzon Expressway. Finished before was also the Subic-Clark-Tarlac Expressway. And we have opened during the last administration the TPLEX, or the Tarlac-Pangasinan-La Union Expressway that ends in Rosario, La Union. Diba? You're familiar. Diba? If you're going to Baguio, you use that expressway and go up to via Quezon Road. We are extending that expressway to further TPLEX from the terminal in Rosario all the way to San Juan in La Union, where you're going to do much of the surfing. Yan daw ang maraming dun San Juan, La Union. So this 59 kilometers of 4-lane toll road, it's a private sector PPP project, will start from the exit of TPLEX 1 and will terminate at San Juan, La Union, and costing around 23 billion under the PPP platform, meaning there will be no government expense on the part, but recovery will be through payment of user's charge or toll fee. So, and the good news is there's another extension that will again extend TPLEX 2 all the way to Ilocos Sur, that will form part of TPLEX 3 from San Juan, La Union, the terminal of the second phase, all the way to Ilocos Sur in Candon, and further extending it to Lawag City. Okay, Ayan, nakarating na ako sa Lawag. Going to the east of Central Luzon, we have the Central Luzon Link Expressway Phase 1. This 30-kilometer 4-lane expressway connects Tarlac City to Cabanatuan City in Nueva Ecija, and travel time between these 2 points will be reduced from more than 1 hour to just about 20 minutes. Costing around 14-15 billion with the JICA assistance, we are completing this, fully completing this, and propose for inauguration, particularly that interchange to San Juan is being proposed for inauguration before the SONA of the President in July. Next would be the Phase 2 of this project, the Central Luzon Link Expressway, that will further extend the Phase 1 from Cabanatuan City and extending it further to San Jose City. Okay, so this will provide and link the existing ECTEX, yung Subic-Clark-Tarlac Expressway, and the Pan-Philippine Highway at some cities between Cabanatuan and San Jose. So, travel time from 1.5 hours will just be reduced to just half an hour once we finish this. And this is going to be open for private sector. So the Phase 1, together with this, will be operated by private sector. Next slide. There's also an expressway that we are submitting for approval, and this is the North Luzon East Expressway. This full access controlled expressway with 4 lanes, estimated at around 90 kilometers, will traverse 2 cities and 7 municipalities in Bulacan and Nueva Ecija. So imagine, starting in Del Monte, Norzagaray Road, and will terminate to connect to the earlier road, the Central Luzon Link Expressway. And that reducing travel time, from more than 3 hours to just about an hour once we finish this. Right now, it is being proposed under the PPP with a indicative cost of 100+ billion. The consulting services is now being procured with an estimated cost of 100 million pesos. Next slide. And another East Expressway in North Luzon that will bisect, kung makikita nyo, yung La Mesa watershed. This is a 4-lane road corridor that will extend from Commonwealth Avenue to the south at Quezon City, and will pass by the La Mesa Reservation and connect to San Jose del Monte in Norzagaray to further connect to the earlier expressway. Again, we are proposing this via PPP, and hopefully, if this pushes through and be completed, travel time from Quezon City in Commonwealth all the way to Norzagaray in Bulacan will just be 20 minutes. Next slide. Of course, you're enjoying the Skyway. Even if I pay the travel time going from Quezon City, my house, all the way here, is really economically efficient if I use the Skyway. So the Skyway we opened up last year. The full construction accomplishments is near 98%, and we will be opening 4 new ramps, 2 on-ramp and 2 off-ramp. So in all, total of 28 ramps will be accessing the Skyway right now. And next slide. Okay, balik mo doon. And the good news is, we are also expanding the Skyway to cross over the congested traffic crossing BGC, that area, what do you call this? To cross Taguig on the other side, at the terminal on the other side, and Tramo on the other side. So you don't have to join upgrade on the traffic at the Loton Avenue on the other side of the BGC. So you don't have to go upgrade, and you can, it's ongoing right now, and we're building the extension to bypass the intersection upgrade all the way to connect to Loton Avenue in Global City. The NLEX-SLEX connector has been partially opened. We opened that portion in Caloocan and Manila, and we opened it last March. And the remaining portion, around 2 kilometers, will be opened by the end of this year. And the intention is to connect this connector to the Skyway somewhere in Santa Mesa. So again, this will carry they will be open to carrying trucks, yung mga trucks that are not allowed to use the Skyway. So basically, this is also connected to the port, harbor, so that the big trucks can use this instead of, using the national road that is very stressed because of, a lot of overloading. Next slide. We have a project, if you're not familiar, we call this the Southeast Metro Manila Expressway, or the C6 Expressway Phase 1. This 32-kilometer toll road will connect the existing Skyway, in FTI Taguig. Okay, so kukonect sila at FTI Taguig City and will run along C5 Diego Silang, moving towards C6 in Taguig, continue along Laguna Lake. If you're familiar with the road nomenclature in Metro Manila, we are built around circumferentials and radials. So, and the last bastion is C6. Afterwards, it's Laguna Lake na. Wala ka ng C7. Okay? So, and the rest are radials and circumferentials. So, this will further link to Ortigas Avenue extension, very traffic, crossing Sumulong Highway towards Marcos Highway, moving to San Mateo, Rizal, and terminate at Batasan Complex. Ongoing right now, So, travel time from nearly 2 hours will just be around 30 or half an hour. We are, of course, right now we are acquiring the necessary right-of-way. Again, the hardest part of any infrastructure development is really the right-of-way acquisition. Next slide. Then we have the C5 Southlink Expressway. This 7-kilometer, more than 7-kilometer, 6-lane expressway will connect from R1, that's Ross Boulevard, Cavitex, all the way to South Luzon Expressway. And travel time from 40 to an hour will be reduced to just about 10 minutes. We have opened partial section in 2019. The rest is, right now we are finalizing the engineering design and acquiring the necessary right-of-way. Next slide. Well, I'm sure you have already utilized portion of the Cavite-Laguna Expressway. We will fully open Cavite-Laguna Expressway, this 44-kilometer, sometime next year. Okay? So, it will connect Cavitex in Kawit to Mamplasan in South Luzon Expressway, reducing your travel time from 2 hours by passing all this traffic or congested areas to just about 30 to 35 minutes. Next slide. There's a new proposal on the table further connecting Cavite, Tagaytay, Batangas Expressway. So this is now being reviewed by NEDA, and again, this will further connect to the ongoing Cavite-Laguna Expressway that will further connect to Nasugbu in Batangas. Next slide. The Laguna Lake Shore Express Road Network Project, Phase 1, around 50 kilometers, will connect Lower Bicutan in Taguig City all the way to Calamba in Laguna. So if you want to scout property and you're into property development and real estate, you might as well check this out. Balik mo dun. This costs around 175 billion pesos. We are pushing this for possible ODA assistance from Asian Development Bank. We've already finished around 90% of the engineering for this huge project. Next slide. The existing South Luzon Expressway will further extend all the way to Lucena City in Quezon. So from the current terminal of SLEX that is in Santo Tomas, Batangas, ongoing right now is our project that will connect and all the way to Lucena, Quezon, reducing travel time from 4 hours to just about an hour. Ongoing right now po yan. Again, the challenge is really on the land acquisition. Oh, nandun na ako sa Lucena ha. I'm going further to Bicol by connecting the Toll Road 4 all the way to from Barangay Mayao in Lucena City, the end of Toll Road 4, and Toll Road 5 will now terminate in Sorsogon, Matnog. Okay? So, costing around 22 billion pesos. Travel time from 2 hours will now be reduced to just about an hour once we finish. And by the way, there was already the toll operation agreement approved by the last administration to further extend this all the way to Matnog in Sorsogon. So nakita nyo na yung blueprint. Meron na po. Of course, infrastructure doesn't happen overnight. That's why infrastructure remains to be one of the major platform of every administration. So, next slide. So, we are not pushing only for the high standard highways and expressway, but we would also want to construct and improve a lot of the bridges, especially in Metro Manila. Okay? So we are building 11 more bridges crossing Pasig River, Marikina River, and Gahan Floodway. And this will provide an alternative linkages between major thoroughfares and increase the number of usable roadway to further decongest Metro Manila. We've already finished. I'm not so sure if you have, at least saw or used these bridges. We finished the Binondo Intramuros Bridge, that's in Manila. Then Estrella Pantaleon Bridge, and you must know it by its more popular name, that bridge in Rockwell, okay, connecting Makati and Mandaluyong. And the one that connects the BGC and Ortigas, we call it the BGC Ortigas Center Link Road project, which we finished in the last administration. So the remaining 8 bridges are now starting, hopefully this year or early next year. There are 3 priority bridges that crosses Pasig Marikina River and Mangahan Floodway. And these are the North and South Harbor Link. The East Bank, West Bank Bridge, if you're familiar, baka dyan kayo nakatira, Palanca-Villegas Bridge. So this is being proposed for funding assistance from China. And the loan agreement was already signed during the President's state visit to China last January. Okay. And there are 3 more bridges crossing Marikina River, and these are Kabayani Street, Matandang Balara. And then we have the Homeowners Drive A. Bonifacio Bridge and the Marcos Highway St. Mary Avenue Bridge. We are now partnering with Asian Development Bank to fund the civil work, the engineering and civil works for these 3 bridges. And then we have 2 important bridges that is part of our Metro Manila Priority Bridges Seismic Improvement Project. And these are, believe it or not, Guadalupe Bridge that we are going to rehabilitate and ensure the structural integrity of the outer bridge of Guadalupe. And we are making sure that we have, we are opening, enough space so that there will be no full disruption of traffic. You must bear with government because Guadalupe Bridge is more than 50 years old. And you do not want to get stuck in traffic on top of Guadalupe Bridge when the big one happens. Okay? So bear with us because your government is really, pushing for a lot of, retrofitting, strengthening of vital bridges in Metro Manila. With our inclusive connectivity program, as I said, we are upgrading the Ang-Marlica Highway. 2023, we have allocated more than 22 billion to rehabilitate, upgrade, and improve more than 400 kilometers of Maharlika Highway. The Nautical Highway, we have 3 routes, Eastern, Central, and Western Nautical Highway, that also connects Luzon to Mindanao using ports or what you call roll-on, roll-off. And in our budget this year, we have allotted 13 billion to rehabilitate, reconstruct, widen, and upgrade around 270 kilometers of the route along Nautical Highway. We want to build, big inter-island linkage bridge program by building 12 short and long span bridges. Let me mention to you some. Ongoing right now is the Pangil Bay Bridge in Mindanao, connecting Lanao del Norte and Misamis Occidental. We have the Gicam Bridge and Tawi-Tawi Bridge in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region for Muslim Mindanao. The Panglao-Tagbilaran City Bridge, City Offshore Bridge in Bohol. And then the ongoing also right now is the Samal Island Davao City Connector Bridge. If you're familiar with the island garden city of Samal, which is a major tourist destination. On our pipeline that we already, negotiating for financing, our biggest flagship project is the Bataan-Cavite Interlink Bridge. Okay? Bataan-Cavite Interlink, I'll tell you a little more details later on, but can you go back to the slide? But also under this program is the bridge that will connect major tourist islands like Panay, Guimaras, producing your sweetest mango, Panay with your Boracay, and Negros with your sugarcane. Okay? So we have in our pipeline Panay, Guimaras, Negros Island bridges. And another 4th bridge will rise to connect Cebu and Mactan. Because of the upgrading of the international port and the opening of new ports there is expected traffic congestion in Cebu City. So the 3rd bridge, which we have inaugurated during the time of President Duterte, there will be another bridge, the Cebu Fort Bridge. Okay? And we will build another bridge parallel to San Juanico Bridge. So more details perhaps like on the Bataan-Cavite Interlink Bridge. This is the biggest ever project of DPWH. This 32-kilometer 4-lane bridge, two lane each direction, will connect Mariveles, Bataan, crossing Manila Bay, and terminating in Naik, Cavite, and will involve two bridges, the North Channel and the South Channel, with about 400 meters and 900 meters span, respectively. If you're an engineer, you can appreciate the magnitude and complexity of building a bridge that will cross Manila Bay. Travel time from between Bataan and Cavite from 5 hours, because you have to go by land and make a circuitous round, will be reduced from 5 hours to just about what? Less than an hour. And indicative estimate is around 175 billion pesos at current cost, funded by Asian Development Bank. We are now finishing the engineering design, and loan will be approved hopefully this year to start the procurement for the services for the construction and civil works. Next slide. I told you about the Panay, Guimaras, Negros bridges. There will be two phases, the Panay Guimaras and the Guimaras Negros. Okay? So right now, we have negotiated a loan for the engineering design with Korean Exim Bank, and hopefully we will be able to start the tendering of this project sometime in late 2024 once we finish the engineering design. Next slide. The fourth bridge in Cebu will involve a 3-kilometer bridge that will again further connect, travel Mactan and decongest, especially during the peak hours in Mactan Cebu International Airport. So this is being funded with JICA assistance, and we will start construction sometime middle of next year. Next slide. The connector bridge in Bohol, we are going to finish, we are going to negotiate for the bridge component from China, but we have already finished the approaches to connect of Tagbilaran and Panglao. And there will rise a second San Juanico bridge parallel to the current San Juanico bridge right now, and this is a 2-lane arc bridge totaling nearly 5 kilometers, including approaches connecting Samar and Leyte islands. So we are proposing this to JICA. Pangil Bay Bridge, this is ongoing. 3-kilometer bridge connecting Misamis Occidental to Lanao del Norte, and we are finishing this hopefully by late this year or early January next year. Yung Samal Island Davao City Connector Bridge, we have started this. The design and build contract is ongoing right now, and the funding source is from China. And as you can see, it was President Bongbong Marcos who closed the loan agreement when he visited China sometime early this year. We have partners with other agencies for rural development, among which is the Department of Tourism for the tourism road projects. We have appropriated more than 70 billion in 2023 to build 443 kilometers of roads leading to tourism destinations. With the Department of Trade and Industry, we have appropriated nearly 10 billion in our budget this year to build, rehabilitate, construct, and upgrade more than 270 kilometers of roads leading to industry corridors. With the Department of Transportation, they're building the airports, ports, and rail station. Mega subway, sa kanila yun ha. The North-South commuter rail is being done by the OTR. But we are helping them to build the access roads leading to the stations. Okay? So we have appropriated 3 billion for from our 2023 budget to build around 50 kilometers of roads leading to airports, seaports, and rail projects. And together with the Department of Agriculture, we are helping them construct farm-to-market roads from their budget. We are also supporting integrated water resource management by building flood control projects, building water impounding projects. We are upgrading drainage along important critical roads, and we are also supporting other agencies. Let me show you the major river basin of the country. There are about 18 of them. So we are, putting up a lot of flood control projects in this priority in this major river basins. Let me walk you through some of the big ones. We have in Pampanga, the Integrated Disaster Risk Reduction Project. We have built 5 pumping stations in Metro Manila. We have finished, but I'm not so sure if we can pursue this, the Parañaque Spillway. So we finished the feasibility study. We have big projects in Cagayan de Oro River, and also, as I said, Pasig Marikina River. Next slide. So all in all, these are only some of the priority programs and projects of the Department of Public Works and Highways, consistent with the 8-point socioeconomic agenda of President Marcos. So the government will continue to collaborate not only with international financing institutions, but also private sector and local governments units, other stakeholders, to ensure that we build a sustainable and green infrastructure that will bring us and help us back propel our economy back on its track and for a more prosperous, inclusive, and resilient Philippines after this administration. So with that, thank you again for this opportunity, and I hope I will be able to answer some of your questions in the open forum.
That was a very comprehensive and impressive presentation by the Undersecretary. An awesome presentation, I must say. And we all know that infrastructure is a big contributor to economic growth, and we appreciate the efforts of government in this regard. I am aware, however, I think of a study by the ADB, which found that while ASEAN economies are well on the way to improving infrastructure, the focus apparently has been on quantity, but they expressed that there might be a concern on the quality. I was wondering, Undersecretary, what efforts would government be doing to ensure that the quality of all these projects would be high standard?
Yes, of course. I'm an engineer myself, and when we manage project, the cost may increase, time may extend, but quality is never negotiable. At any project, it's non-negotiable. And as we all know, the DPWH, we are the engineering arm, and 80% of our members in DPWH are mostly engineers, and we have standards. We have standards and minimum design standards. And if there are non-conventional engineering methodologies or technologies that we can introduce, we always tap experts, not only here but also international expertise. So much so that all our projects we assure that our projects are based on standards that are defined by not only by DPWH but international standards as well. That's why even seismic standards, we follow international seismic measurements, no. But of course, there are laws. For example, building code. We have the building code. We have the green building code that is an that is a referral code of the National Structural Code of the Philippines. And the National Structural Code of the Philippines is the Bible of quality standards and specifications. So, and all the projects, of course, there are a lot of nuances and situations that may arise, especially for projects that are implemented in areas where you experience difficulties in terrain, weather conditions, among others. But as I said, all engineering projects are supposed to be measured in terms of quality, and quality is never negotiable.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. That's very gratifying to hear. I'm sure the audience would have questions. Please approach the mic, or someone will approach you. Please identify yourself. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Undersecretary. My name is Lorraine Gomez. I'm from GHD. We are a global engineering firm. Thank you very much for that very comprehensive and exciting presentation. It's always good to hear that the country's, really focus on improving our infrastructure for
Hindi lang
for
kami
our
masyadong
people.
magaling mag-communicate, mga engineers kasi ganyan eh. But seeing the programs, everyone is kind of surprised at first na meron palang ganyang blueprint. Kasi mga engineers kasi hindi kasi masyado kami magaling mag-communicate.
Yeah,
But
they
I'm
should
happy to
take
share
from
with you all of this.
Yeah. My question is around about the release of the National Asset Management Plan last year. And it's our firm, me personally, I'm very passionate about asset management. And it's a very good document. So we're interested to know how the department is aligning with the National Asset Management Plan so that all these infrastructure
I believe it's being led by the Department of Finance.
That's right, ma'am.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. And they are calling on all agencies to discuss a lot of strategies and approaches on how we can align our projects to that asset management program. For example, I was part of one discussion where we were trying to, at least secure many of our vital infrastructure in terms, especially the bridges, and the bridges, which are vital facilities, especially, to an archipelago like the Philippines. So that said, I think finance is leading the way to ensure that all projects are aligned to the direction of ensuring that existing assets of government are properly managed and maintained. Of course, given the constraints of, for example, financing, among others, and expertise as well.
Thank you. Any other question, please? Don't be shy. I mean, with a very long
wag po kayo
and
mahiya.
comprehensive report.
Naghintay po kayo
and
ng isang
discussion.
oras. Kaya dapat masulit ang inyong pinaghintay.
Let me ask another question, Madam Secretary. I think you mentioned that the funding of these projects would either be ODAs or PPPs. I was wondering which between the two would be the emphasis, and what factors do you consider when you determine that a project would be ODA funded
Yes.
or PPP?
In government, we have the PPP Center that is attached to the National Economic Development Authority. It's always been an argument, or probably a lot of discussion room, even in the past administration, how to distinguish, or how do you, identify a project if it is for PPP or ODA. Okay. Of course, we would know. I've been with with government for the longest time, 30 years more and counting.
Wow.
So every administration has its own, biases. Okay, some in past administration, they have biases for private sector, and some past administration have biases for ODA. Having said that, the only cue that I know is that if there is private sector interested for a particular project to finance, then it's good to offer it to the private sector, because that means the funds that I will be saving if private sector is financing can be put to other projects with no appetite for private sector financing. For example, rural development, which private sector will finance a farm to market road or even a school building? So if I have a private sector interested to build all this at no cost to the government, of course users pay, right? So then I would, as I'm an engineer, an economist, and an urban planner as well, I would consider primarily, oh, there's already a private sector interested to invest. Then I could use the money that I can save to finance other, well, economically viable. There's a distinction between financial viability, and many of you are probably financial into financing. There's a difference between financial viability and economic viability. So if ODA, it's economic viability ang foremost consideration dyan. The threshold is around 10% at least. But if it's PPP, it should not only be economically viable, but it should be financially attractive to the private sector. That means private sector will have to do its own study, compute your WACC, or weighted average cost of capital, and your ROR, right, rate of return, and see if you will earn based on revenue streaming. So there's no playbook that will tell me or tell you if it's a project is supposed to be for PPP or it's supposed to be for ODA. It's really up to the private sector if there is, if there are conditions and situations that will make it attractive to the private sector. And of course, incentives. Oo, and hindi na kami yun. Kasi incentives ang nagbibigay niyan, finance, Department of Finance. So, yun yung parameter. But generally speaking, there's no hard rule where to go. In past administration, I know that they are more into ODA, and currently, we're now encouraging more private sector partnership.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience, please?
So it's nice to see you again after our Women's Engineering Network meet up way back 2019. Yes. So my questions, I'm Jem from GHD. So my question is more on the RA 9184, which is the Procurement Act of the government. So what I would like to ask is that will there be changes in the future in terms of giving full accountability to foreign consultants to bid on all locally funded projects?
Oh, okay. I know for a fact that there, RE 9184 is always being reviewed, and the review team is led by DBM, and this is the DBM under the GPPB, or the Government Procurement Policy Board, chaired by DBM. Having said that, I'm sure there has been a lot of discussions on provisions in the 9184 that would need and have to be revisited to adapt to current situation. I would agree to give more accountability, well, personally. I would give more preference to making sure accountability is very defined, especially if the partnership is between a Filipino consulting team and a foreign consulting team. But of course, again, if I'm not mistaken, putting more accountability would mean more premium, and that would drive the cost up of projects, because of course, the accountability, you have to get guarantees and insurances, correct? No, to make sure, parang ano rin yan, parang guarantee, warranty. You pay for warranty, but you have to pay for, some costs to ensure that there will be somebody accountable. Okay. But that's not the only provisions that should be reviewed in the 9184, among others, maraming provisions then that are being already raised by the industry, construction industry, the local construction industry, particularly on, providing for, I for one know that they would want price adjustment again because of the driving cost of construction materials because of many factors, a confluence of many factors, not only COVID, but of course the ongoing geopolitical conflicts right now in Russia, Ukraine, China, US, that those are all fuel producing countries, that any movement would also impact, a lot of the oil producing countries worldwide, and again impact on the production of construction costs, asphalt, concrete, cement, steel, among others. So price adjustment, I know that construction industries appealing to provide a window for them to be able to address concerns like the pandemic, where not only construction materials but also the labor cost. You lost a lot of labor, skilled workers, because of the pandemic. And I know also that there are appeals to expand the eligibility criteria of contractors to be able to participate in more projects. But again, that's being tackled regularly by the GPPB, the Government Procurement Policy Board, and I think the amendment is only, good for approval by the President. So it's not even needing a law, because what you're amending is the IRR, if I'm not mistaken, not the entire Republic Act. So the amendments of the IRR are continuously being done by a set of group under the GPPB.
Thank you.
Let me tell you on some updates. The BOT law is currently being updated. 10752, or the Republic or the right-of-way law, is also being reviewed, and the law on MVUC, or the motor vehicle users charge, is also proposed to be amended. And there's that creation. Government is pushing for the creation of the Department of Water to manage and regulate all water-related concerns and programs. So there are many things that are happening that would affect the industry.
Thank you. Any other question, please? Madam Secretary, I just, as you mentioned, certain concerns of contractors and project proponents would be the increase in the cost of construction materials, labor costs as well, and then I think they identify certain contract price escalation. And as you mentioned, RA 10752 on the right-of-way, which seems to be a major factor in the delay in completion. What efforts is the government, particularly your department, aiming at to be able to improve the right-of-way acquisition?
The right-of-way acquisition, we are, of course, aside from setting sufficient funds, funds can never be sufficient. Aside from setting funds to compensate for right-of-way land acquisition, to hasten the process, because a lot of the factors are outside the control of the department, particularly when it goes to expropriation. Okay, so we have managed to for the Supreme Court to create a dedicated right-of-way court specifically for flagship projects. So, but again, that's a small step, because as you know, of course, expropriation cases would also take time, and because of the magnitude of the properties affected and the documents that we need and funding, the requirement of the law says funding should already be deposited in an escrow. It's kind of difficult also. So with that, somehow we are able to manage. That's why it's important that private sector will be able to we are able to get them to establish a revolving fund to advance payment for right-of-way claims, so that we are all already able to enter the property and be given the permit to enter. Okay, so those are small steps that we are able to manage. We have reimbursement agreements with the private sector, so that documentation will follow, and they have agreed for as long as we also process quickly what they are reimbursing from us, subject to certain documents necessary, and the creation of special dedicated right-of-way court that we were able to get from the Supreme Court. We still need a lot of things to be done in terms of land acquisition, because in the Philippines you have a very tedious process of acquiring the land, unlike in other countries where if it's a government project, nobody can stop. Here I always get notices. In fact, there is even, I think, a law, not a law, but an instruction directive from the judiciary not to issue TROs,
yes,
right?
for public
But
projects.
you have so many courts nationwide, and some still manages to issue
Sure.
TROs.
Thank you. Well, rightly or wrongly, I think an elephant in the room is that critics would always say that the department might be still open to certain corruption cases and incidences. I was wondering whether under the present administration that is a target to curb as a practice.
Yeah, governance is on top of our platform. I think with the advent of technology, we have developed a lot of applications, technologies to ensure, at least to reduce the opportunities for corruptions. Particularly, we have, we are implementing on a year basis, based on the budget, between 30,000 projects on the average a year. Okay, so you must understand that this is only based on the current budget. So you have previous budgets still ongoing, you have current budgets that projects that you have to monitor. So we have developed this application, for example, the project contract management application, where we can monitor real time the actual progress of the work using, of course, data and drone shots, and using coordinates, actual coordinates, so we can get the actual status real time, including disbursements, because it's very hard to monitor 30,000 real time. We have also other applications to help us, for example, in Civil Works Registry. We have the Civil Works Registry application, where we can evaluate eligibility of contractors based on data that are imported from other agencies, so we can determine whether they are eligible for a specific project. Other applications involving design, involving planning, are in place. Of course, those are reforms that have been started in the past, and we are strengthening them. Having said that, of course, the biggest I think the biggest thrust of this administration and DPWH to ensure stakeholders' participation. That's why we have opened our agency to feedbacks that are being given not only through writing your letters, but also online. And we have, ARTA for one. ARTA, you have the anti-red tape. You can report, so because they can track, and report other instances where, the situation will call the attention of the agency. Again, the success of any reform program, governance program, depends not only on government, but also on our partners, the private sector. So help us, make use of technology, so that we will be able to implement all these flagship projects with the least amount of intervention, external intervention.
Thank you. It's very inspiring actually to hear that efforts of government are directed towards the curbing of corruption as well as the improvement of technology. I suppose if there are no other questions, I'd like to have a final question, Secretary. You've set timetables for the completion of all these projects. I'm particularly interested in how ODA projects would be repaid by the Philippine government, and again, what actions are you taking to ensure that the Philippine government will not go into another debt crisis just to address this?
Well, of course, we are engineering department, no? But, as a member of the top management, we understand that all these mega projects would involve financing. Somehow, whether it's private sector source, where you are also going to access financing either locally or domestically or internationally. Financing many of the ODA, of the projects under ODA, I think would have been, not I think, but I believe have been studied thoroughly by the economic team. So the economic team led by Department of Finance studies the terms and conditions of every loan covenants, no? In fact, I remember, and this is just to be candid about it, I remember during the start of President Duterte, when he was pronouncing that a lot of projects will be financed by China, but we were only a few projects finally came into fruition, and it's because they have been very cautious on the terms and conditions, okay? So, and you also have to determine the projects that will yield the maximum benefits in terms not only of direct job generation, but also other benefits. Infra has the biggest multiplier effect to economy. First, you create the jobs directly. You attract more investment because you have good infra, right? And you triggered other industries because aside from the manufacturing of construction materials, you are triggering the domestic, the tourism industry, right? So the manufacturing industry, you are bringing down the cost because you have good infrastructure. Of course, not only good roads, but you have to have good water system, digital infrastructure in place. All of those should, come into fruition so that we will have an environment that is conducive for investors and businesses to invest. So that is the multiplier effect of infra. So the economic team and NEDA, DOF, should really study which of the big ticket projects that are proposed by all the agencies that will yield the highest benefits for the Philippine government and negotiate for the most attractive terms when they borrow financing for these big ticket projects. So I think at the end of the day, and of course with the reduction of corruption, we will be able to have the highest yield in terms of the benefits. So very challenging, but you have to be also helping national government.
Thank you. Yeah. There's yeah.
Time for one last question. So I'm Aaron from PhD as well. I'm a water engineer by background, but I think one curious thing that I'd like to sort of understand is looking at the budgets between Department of Transport, DPWH, there seems to be a very heavy focus on road infrastructure versus rail. What is the reasoning behind the Philippines focusing more on road networks versus rail systems?
As an urban planner myself, I'm more partial to mass transit.
Yes.
So I cannot answer that because if you ask me, if I would prioritize mass transit. Because while we have more budget for the roads, building more roads would, doesn't mean you're solving traffic, because you just create the impression that you have more space and people will buy more cars. And that buying more cars will create more problems, carbon emission, right? And in the country, you don't regulate the number of cars, unlike Singapore, where you regulate the number of plates instead of the number of cars. So here, we don't have regulation on how many cars, you can buy. Right, you can, the number of cars running on the road. So even with the number coding, if you ask me, it only encourages people who has the money to buy more cars so that I can avoid the number coding. And if I'm not that rich, I can only buy one car. And so what's the solution? Improve mass transit. So I am all in agreement with you when when we say that mass transit should take the highest importance in making sure that we solve traffic congestion. And yes, I agree. But if you ask me why, I think that should be left and best answered by the economic team.
Yeah. Agree. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for that very incisive question, which actually leads me to possibly the last question.
Yeah, I mean, just to add, who's going to use the mass transit right now if, if you have, baka magalit ang DOTR, hindi pa reliable, di ba? But when you go to other countries like Singapore, you have an efficient mass transit. Nobody's using the car. It's more expensive to use the car. And I'm all for, intermodal transport system where I get down from the bus to take the mass transit, right?
So that aspect of like subways, for instance,
Yes.
right, would be at the Department of Transportation, and not your department.
Well, we help build the access roads leading to the
Right.
stations.
Okay.
And you have, as a planner, you have to already, plan your businesses where to locate by making sure there are enough transport modalities in the areas you have chosen to, well, at least to build your businesses.
Thank you. Any other questions, please? So may I invite everyone to please give the speaker and the Secretary Cabral a resounding applause. Thank you. We thank you for your very comprehensive presentation. Thank you. May we ask the representative of Terra Grail to present the plaque of appreciation to our keynote speaker.
A special thank you to Usec Maria Catalina A. Cabral in appreciation for being our guest speaker at the 9th Philippine Infrastructure and Construction Club Luncheon, May 12, 2023, at the Dusetani, Makati City.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you all for being here today and for your continued support of the Philippine Infrastructure and Construction Club. Watch out for upcoming events. You can log on to our website and our Facebook page, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. This is Dicky Salazar signing off. Thank you.